You want to go. Yes, go travel, go explore, go find a new city, go reconnect with friends, go have fun. That's why we created OnGo, the trusted rapid COVID-19 self-test. OnGo gives you accurate COVID test results and peace of mind in just minutes. So anywhere you go, you know. You'll know if you're COVID-19 free, and you'll know you're protecting loved ones. OnGo is readily available at letsongo.com, Amazon, Walgreens, or Walmart.com. Use promo code ONGO15 for 15% off at letsongo.com today.
My son's making college plans. Let's just say his college wish list is long. We recently toured IUPUI in Indianapolis and were impressed. It has everything he's looking for. He can live on campus and close to downtown opportunities. He can choose from 550 academic programs from Indiana's top universities, IU and Purdue. And we learned Ohio residents qualify for extra tuition savings. Learn more at iupui.edu/opportunity.
Live from wherever you happen to be, it's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. And now, here's your host, curator of the Hall, Jamie Dew.
Hey there, and welcome to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. My name is Jamie Dew. It is a pleasure to join you once again here in our hallowed hall. So if you wouldn't mind starting where we always start and wiping your goddamn feet before you enter the Hall of Fame. So there's that. What do we do here in the hall? Well, once a week we get together. We put our heads together, we get ourselves a fantastic guest, and they nominate a candidate in one of four categories: cast member, host, musical guest, or writer. Come April 24th, the ballot will be full. We will have revealed all the balloteers, and on April 25th, we will open voting. You will have just under 3 weeks. You'll have till, or just over 3 weeks, you'll have till May 20th to make your decisions, casting your votes, and then I'll go into tabulating. And anybody that receives 66% or more of the vote on in the election will become a member of the SNL Hall of Fame. So that's sort of how we play the game. I don't know what else I could tell you, but that's the game. And then we'll do it all again next season. If you have any questions or concerns about the SNL Hall of Fame and how it's run or operated, please visit snlhof.com to get all your answers, to get all your questions answered. And that's a good way to, sort of be a friend of the show as well. So that's what I ask of you. I ask you to listen to the podcast with a open mind and listen to the case that the candidate, that the guest is building for the candidate. And then, you'll make a determination whether or not that candidate is worth one of your votes. It's a tale as old as time. So there's that. This week on the pod, I am joined by, if you are in the SNL Superfans Facebook group, somebody you will be very familiar with, and that's Marcus Jennings. He's one of the moderators in that group. You've probably also seen him creeping around SNL Network. I believe he's been on the SNL Network, maybe for the Norm episode. The tribute to Norm. I'm not 100% positive, but there's a way for me to find out, to do some research and find out, but I'm not going to do that because that would be far too easy. Anyway, Marcus has brought with him Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, who have appeared on the show a number of times. I believe it's 7 times. So certainly Hall of Fame worthy in terms of their arc on the show. And Marcus goes into detail about that. We're also going to listen to a couple tracks. and get familiar with their appearances on the SNL Hall of Fame. Whether or not they make it in the Hall, well, again, that's on you. Marcus is going to do the best job he can do coming up with the case, and we'll go from there. So let's get right into that interview with Marcus Jennings, and let's learn some more about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Here you go. So Petty and the Heartbreakers, they go on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 99. They're inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2002. But today we are here to add them to the ballot of the SNL Hall of Fame. And I'm joined by Marcus Jennings to make the case for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. How you doing, Marcus?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. So, Petty and the Heartbreakers. Let's start off with the easy question. Did you choose them because you're a fan?
I did, but they're always in the conversation for me. When somebody asks me who's your favorite musical guest, if they're not number one, they're easily in my top three. They made several appearances on Saturday Night Live over the years, going all the way back to the 70s. Into the 2010s before Tom Petty passed away recently. So it was an easy pick for me. I think they're go-to musical guest for the show, and that's why they've been on so many times. And they have a really strong fan base that would watch. And I think they have good chemistry with a lot of the alumni over the years. And actually, it's one of the things I wanted to mention was they've been on SNL 8 times. They have this kind of weird knack pairing because they were on 8 times from 1979 to 2010. And every time except for one, they were on with a return host. Kind of a cool little thing.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Alden in 2010 and Buck Henry in 79, right?
79, yeah. But check this out. Okay, so 1983, they're on with Howard Hessman, who hosted 3 times. 1989, they're on with Steve Martin, who's obviously a 15-timer. 1991 with Kirstie Alley, who hosted twice. Okay, I'm going to skip 1994. Because we'll talk about that in a second. 1996, they're on with Tom Hanks, who's a 10-timer. 1999 with John Goodman, a 13-timer. And then, as you mentioned, 2010 with Alec Baldwin, who is a 17-timer. I want to go back to 1994 for a second. The only time they did not have we'll call that a return host as the host with their show, was their 5th time on the show. So that would have made their entry into the 5-timers club.
Right.
Okay. It gets even better than that. John Turturro is a single-time host. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were in between drummers, and they brought in Dave Grohl, who had recently left Nirvana when Kurt Cobain had died and had not yet started the Foo Fighters project, as their drummer for that night. So another thing there, just like they like to work with return hosts. They bring in somebody who has become a virtuoso of hard rock and of rock music, and somebody else again who's been on SNL a number of times.
Right on.
Dave Grohl, as you'll see with the soundbite, is that he was a fan and loved playing the kind of music that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were playing at that time. So it goes without saying, I think, that they're one of those picks in my mind that is, I think, perfect for the conversation we're having today. So 1979, It's their first time on SNL. They've had a couple albums out to that point. Tom Petty has been performing for a while now. He had a band in Florida, where he's from, Gainesville, Florida, and they break up. Tom Petty gets a record deal, brings in some of his friends from that last band, Mike Campbell, Benmont Trench, and they get together what you would call now a classic rock band, and they start hitting the charts.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
We both know it, we don't talk too much about it. Ain't no real big secret, all the same, somehow we get around it. Listen, it don't make no difference to me, baby. You believe what you wanna believe. You see it, Joe, hey, to live like a refugee. Don't have to live like a refugee. Somewhere, somehow, somebody must have kicked you around some. Who knows why you won't lay there, revel in your abandon. Honey, it don't really matter to me, baby. Everybody's had to fight to be free. See it now, hey, to live like a refugee. Have to live like a refugee. Oh, baby, don't, hey, to live like a refugee. Don't have to live like a refugee. Oh, baby, we ain't the first. I'm sure a lot of other lovers been burned. Right now, this seems real to you, but it's one of those things you got to feel to be true. Somewhere, somehow, somebody must have kicked you around some. Who knows, maybe you were kidnapped, tied up, taken away, held for ransom. Baby, it don't make no difference to me, honey. Everybody's had to fight to be free. See it now, hey, to live like a refugee. Have to live like a refugee. Oh, baby, don't, hey, to live like a refugee. Don't have to live like a refugee.
Could you imagine being a teenager in 1979 on a Saturday night and hearing Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers blaring out of your TV? That's a rocker right there. That is a rocker.
Absolutely.
You know. Then again, that season had just a lot of great musical guests, starting off with Blondie, and in Chicago. I'm just like, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers are just one of those great bands. I wasn't born until 1985 when my dad introduced me to Tom Petty's music. And I could tell you, every time I found an episode of SNL with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, I was one of those, I earmarked one of those. I'm like, I want to go to that one first. Because I want to know what they're going to play. I want to know how good the musical guest is going to be introduced. You know, I get kind of, I have a fanboy moment, you know.
Right.
You ask if they're one of those bands that, you know, did I pick them because they're one of my favorites? Of course. I got to see Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers in concert 3 times before Tom passed away. And
Wow.
it was just one of those electrifying things of seeing a band that you grew up listening to in your earphones, and you're just like, you know, yeah, that's exactly what I look forward to. So that was Refugee. It's a song from 1979. Damn the Torpedoes. Great album if you can find it. I'm sure you can. Whether it's in a record store or if you are looking for it online, I'm sure you can. So if you're a Tom Petty fan or you like good classic rock like I do, definitely an album worth looking into. So, Jamie, I want to ask you a question because, you know, you're curating this Hall of Fame. When you think of a musical guest that has performed on the show or that you would put in the pantheon, you would raise their name to the rafter, what is something you look for?
I think that they need to be, you know, established as like a great rock and roll band or a great artist outside of the, you know, SNL zeitgeist. What I think is really cool about Petty and the Heartbreakers is they came of age on the show. You know, we really got to watch them the whole time. There are a lot of guests and musical acts that, Buck Henry being one, you know, Steve Martin being another, that were like heavy in the Lorne era. And then Domanian and Ebersol, they just didn't show up. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers did show up in 83 and did an Ebersol show. And then again in 86, I think.
89.
89,
Okay,
sorry.
yeah.
So at the Lorne era. So, you know, we got to see them. They were only a band for 3 years when they appeared the first time. So I think that that's a really cool thing. But to go back to the nut of your question, I also think, without being cute about it, there doesn't have to be a moment, but if there is a moment or two on the show, like something that is a memorable moment, then that's a plus for the band as well. Like, you know, I'm not suggesting Sinead O'Connor is a Hall of Famer because she tore up a picture of the Pope or anything like that. But, you know, like just like sort of a moment, you know, when I think Prince doing a 4-song medley, you know, a 9-minute segment, you know, like something like that. That's a Hall of Fame type moment, you know?
Then I guess I would go to 1989. The day that Gilda Radner dies, Steve Martin is the host. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers are the musical guest. I'm not saying there's a connection there, but it's just oddly familiar to SNL fans, I guess, as that day in history. To that, I definitely agree with you. They are, you say they come of age on the show, but for every talent coordinator that was on SNL over the years, Laurie Zaks, Liz Welsh, Marcy Klein, Lindsay Shookus, over the span of from 1979 to 2010, they were a band that was obviously in the forefront of music in some capacity. They had albums out. They were performing live. They were touring extensively well over those years. Tom had a really great solo career going. He had his side project with the Traveling Wilburys. You know, he was a big name, and I think he's still a big name in music because, yes, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They are a band that has appeared on SNL several times for a reason. I go back to that saying, hey, could you imagine being a teenager in 1979 listening to this music, you know?
Yeah.
To that, I say they're kind of like a band's band, you know, when bands get together, when you're a teenager or you're in your early 20s and you're, you know, getting together with your best friends in your garage playing songs, whether it's a cover band or potentially a band. I think those are the songs you go back to. You know, it's one of those things of you want to find songs that people know, or just songs to kind of riff with, have fun with. I think songs like Free Falling or American Girl are those songs. So when they were on SNL in 1994, they were in between drummers, and they recruited Dave Grohl from Nirvana and the Foo Fighters to be their drummer. So I think it says something for them to know who's available, who might be a fan of theirs, who might know their music, things like that. And they call up Dave Grohl, and this is what Dave Grohl said in the Running Down the Dream documentary a couple years back.
Someone from my management calls and says, "Hey, Tom Petty just called and wants to know if you'll play drums with them on Saturday Night Live." I'm like, what? The fuck is he calling me for? He couldn't find a good drummer? I said, of course, I'll do it. No question, I'll do it. It was the first time that I'd really looked forward to playing the drums since Nirvana had ended. I was really excited to play both songs, but mostly Honeybee, because Honeybee is just such a rocker. It's like the kind of thing a bunch of 16-year-olds would play in the garage to get off. It's killer. It's a barn burner.
It's such a great commentary that somebody like that, even at that time, even now, it was kind of a fanboy about Tom Petty. Dave Grohl, to say that he was open to the idea, wanted to play the song or songs, and just he loved it. He goes on to say in that little piece that he was happy they got to do Honeybee. Honeybee is a really kind of like blues-oriented hard rock song, if that makes sense in the minds of the people listening. That's not I don't think it's a hard thing to understand that there are generations of music being played, but hard rock and blues are not necessarily two genres that you mix together.
Well, Zeppelin.
Unless you really work hard at it and can find the right band and the right composition to make those two genres work.
Right. Okay.
So they have an album out. This is actually Tom Petty's second solo album, but a majority of the Heartbreakers are playing on it. So when they appear on Saturday Night Live in 1994, again, Dave Grohl is on drums, but they play this song and they play another song. But this is the song that I want your listeners to actually hear, because I think this speaks to how good of a band Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were, that they could do this song, and it's just great that they have a hard rock drummer on drums to play this one with them.
Don't tell your mama, don't tell your sister, don't tell your
That is great.
In my personal opinion, one of their best performances in the 8 times they were on the show. So good that when they released the SNL 25 music CD series, that was one of the performances that was on those CDs.
Oh,
I don't know if you
really?
remember that? Yeah. So
Oh, wow. I don't remember those CDs.
I don't have them anymore, but I know I have them on a digital file now.
Right.
Yeah. So when SNL hit their 20th anniversary, there was a lot of SNL merch that came out along the 25th anniversary, and that was one of them that I loved because they had a kind of a harder rock one, rock music, and then they had one that was more pop oriented. So like you'd have Janet Jackson on one, and then you have Tom Petty on another. And I'm sure you could still find them on Amazon and eBay and all that, but they were good to have because there were versions, or there were strip versions from the SNL live performance that was really cool. To one of your recent podcasts, Neil Young, one of their performances is on that same disc, and you turn that up. I'm sorry, it's just. I mean, you want to jam, turn that up. Your neighbors are going to be complaining. It's one of those. So
in terms of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers,
mm-hmm.
they've appeared on the show 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
For over what, 4 decades?
Close to that. I mean, you'd say 79 to 2010. They kind of touch on multiple decades.
In the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. 5 decades. My God. That's that's staggering. How
many bands could do that?
I don't.
Maybe
think
the Rolling Stones. Okay, maybe.
Yeah. I don't think there's a counter argument here. I think that, especially in the first year of the SNL Hall of Fame,
mm-hmm.
in the music category, they need to be in there, don't they?
I think they're an easily first ballot. When you talk about baseball Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame should go the same way. They should. If they're not in the conversation, there should be a really good reason why. Maybe that's my opinion. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a fan, but from our conversations so far, you can see that I'm not just a fan of one thing. I'm a fan of the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a fan of everything from 75 to today. All 900 plus episodes we've had. I can argue a lot of ways about why somebody should be. We're going to have the argument further down the line of somebody like Justin Bieber, because obviously they've been on the show a lot, and they have legions of fans and all that. But I'm thinking, but do they have mass appeal? If you could put Justin Bieber in a DeLorean and go back to 1975, would Lauren have booked him on the show? I don't know. I mean, he would have been a Donny Osmond type. So maybe, but were they booking a Donny Osmond act on SNL in 1975? Not really.
Not really, no.
They weren't going for the bubblegum demographic at that point. Maybe they were as the show progressed, but in 1975, they were booking the bands on that they wanted to book on. That's why you put somebody like Billy Preston on the first episode. Bill Withers, personal favorite of mine. Maybe that's why I picked him. Leon Redbone. Who heard of Leon Redbone before SNL put him on? I'm sure he had some fans, but I know Leon Redbone because of SNL.
Right.
If you talk to fans that are our age, what do we know Leon Redbone from?
Oh, SNL for sure.
Well, that or the detergent ads.
Oh,
hey, that's all. That's it.
For me, it's strictly SNL. I missed that ad.
It's okay. I love I love acts like that. And then like it's some of those musical acts from the 70s, from the 80s that you really don't even hear even on iHeartRadio channel. Or Spotify. It's like you're not going to hear them because people aren't talking about them, but they're in the conversation when it comes down to people like us that have these conversations that look back at somebody who embodies growing up with the show, watching the show for the first time, even if it was a rerun. Like, the show, you can go back and kind of place yourself where you were when you were watching the show for the first time as a teenager, or watching them on a DVD, or watching them on Comedy Central or Canadian Comedy Network, whatever the capacity might be. You could think of some really, really interesting performances and musical guests like Leon Redbone, but like Tom Petty, that put you back in that place that first time you watched him.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because like I do remember, not live, but watching that performance, the 79 performance. And, it's almost, to me, like the Elvis Costello one. It's just indelible in my head now,
Agreed.
But then you get that followed up, unlike Elvis Costello, who got banned, you get 7 more performances by this group.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just by virtue of the number of times they were invited back, it shows you that they were, linked with the show in a way that is greater than a lot of other bands have experienced and a lot of other artists have experienced. So to me, by virtue of that alone, I think they belong on the ballot for sure. And in the Hall of Fame ultimately.
Well, if they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, why not be in the SNL Hall of Fame?
And that's that. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so they should be in the SNL Hall of Fame. I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that. A great conversation there with Marcus. If you want to find more of his work, you can look on Twitter at Jennings_writer. You can also find Marcus doing some moderation work, as I mentioned off the top, at the SNL Superfans group on Facebook. It's a very large collection of SNL fans. You should definitely check that out. So that's what I've got for you this week. Marcus Jennings, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, musical guests, Hall of Famers. We'll have to wait and see. So with that, I bid you adieu, and I'd ask you to do me a favor, and on your way past, turn out the lights, because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. You can find everything you need to know about the show at snlhof.com. Don't forget to subscribe, share, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. This is Doug Denant saying, this is Doug Denant saying, see you next month in the hall.
Podcasts and such.
Now is the perfect time to work at Amazon. They are offering hourly jobs with great pay and even include a large sign-on bonus. No matter where you're at in the job market, you can select from a variety of available roles in your area. Join an exciting work environment and be part of a team that brings smiles to customers every day. To find the job that works for you and some extra cash, go to amazon.com/apply. That's amazon.com/apply. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
My son's making college plans. Let's just say his college wish list is long. We recently toured IUPUI in Indianapolis and were impressed. It has everything he's looking for. He can live on campus and close to downtown opportunities. He can choose from 550 academic programs from Indiana's top universities, IU and Purdue. And we learned Ohio residents qualify for extra tuition savings. Learn more at iupui.edu/opportunity.